This time on No Not the Mind Probe, episode number 99. You gotta exterminate the positive, eliminate the negative. Goodbye to the alternative and say bye to the in between. Except just the first part is
just the first part, yeah. Welcome to No, Not the Mind Probe. That's a James Earl Jones little tribute there.
An homage.
A lot of people have been honoring
the late
him.
great.
The late great, genre within the genre. Never appeared in Doctor Who, but voiced Darth Vader, who was played by the body was played by David Prowse, who was in Doctor Who. So obviously, and so clearly, James Earl Jones probably a huge fan of both Doctor Who and No, Not the Mind Probe.
The old 1 degree of any British guy. You can get to Doctor Who.
Exactly. And I feel like Jones would have been.
John, welcome back. And yes, in our time gone, we murdered James Earl Jones.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
We toppled a president.
We did. Porter actually was not on the podcast. So we stopped recording for a while because Porter and Nancy Pelosi were working together to bring down the Biden administration. To make room for Harris, I think, to make room for,
exactly.
There we go.
See on the YouTube channel, I'm sporting by the way, I'm sporting the original Kamala Harris gear from back in 2020 when I supported her very poorly run primary campaign. So I just wanted to say I'm kind of a cool kid ahead of the game. John, what is this? What are we even doing?
Well, I've forgotten. But according to the script here, it is a podcast where we watch and rank the first 300 Doctor Who stories. And, we joked many times, wouldn't it be funny if we stopped at, here at episode 99 or whatever.
Right.
And then we stopped recording for 4 months. But I think that really was, or maybe 6 months, but I think it's clear we didn't promise that we would do all 300 episodes quickly or, necessarily consecutively. We will complete this project before one of us dies, most likely. We're not making a promise.
One or both. Like, we will either complete this project before one of us dies, or one of us will die, thus completing the project. So,
but we've promised each other, if that does happen, we will recast, but we will not acknowledge the recast at all. He's been here the whole time, and we even flash back to earlier episodes and just pretend we're the same person, because that's the Mind Probe promise.
I thought like my kids will continue, like my estate will continue on the podcast.
Just your lawyer will just be with a little briefcase and be like, Mr. Mason asked me to read the following.
What they'll do is they won't appear, but they'll try to piece together any notes and correspondence I've had about the episodes to get across what my feeling might have been on the episodes.
Yeah. It'd be like James Patterson, I think, just completed a Michael Crichton Jurassic Park sequel or something, or a volcano thing or something based on notes. So it'll be similar. Like this podcast is like Michael Crichton in its popularity and obviously its reach. But it is not hosted by Michael Crichton. It's hosted by me. My name is John Grant, and I am a lifelong Doctor Who fan. I have been watching it, and we just rolled the old odometer over here. I have been watching it for 40 years. This is the 40th anniversary of me watching Doctor Who.
And I guess because you say you're lifelong, but of course you didn't start until you're, 8 years old, I guess.
Actually, I was pretty young, so this might even be off. If this gets audited, you insisted on seeing my long form birth certificate before we started this podcast.
Every year of John's Doctor Who fandom, I deduct $10,000 from the No Not the Mind Probe expenses. So I pray that we don't get audited. By the way, I'm Porter Mason, the CFO of the podcast. John has been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 28 years. Again, we took that up a bit too. And a few years ago, we don't even pin this down anymore. To be exact, I guess it's 5 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah. I finally said yes because it was a pandemic. It's 2020. Yeah. So I think, I finally said yes. So each episode of the podcast, purportedly, what we have found and looking back through the archives, that we look at 2 Doctor Who stories. We're going through the the modern day Doctor Who
the
in
newish
order.
Doctor Who. Yeah,
We're in the Peter Capaldi years,
yeah.
and then John acts as our Doctor Who sommelier and pairs that story with a classic story. But first, you wanted to look back. We've been gone. It's 8 months, by the way, because it was March when we stopped.
Good Lord. Well, that
You
doesn't make
wanted to
sense
look back.
because it's
No, that's
not.
6 months. That's wrong. Okay, in my mind, here's why I said that. It makes a lot of sense, and I think we'd all agree. In my mind, when I was doing that math, I briefly decided it was November, and I was very strong about it. It was like I was in my head doing the math. I was like, well, of course it's November now. We all know that. Because I was thinking, you know why? I was thinking forward to Thanksgiving, John. It's a lovely holiday. Anyway,
I'm just wanting to get to the election, and if we could just knock that out as quickly as possible, that would be great. That would be really.
That's one of the things to go on a tangent. Which, again, looking back through the archives, I believe
That's
we do.
Thing we do.
This and our international listeners will appreciate this. This election, more than any other, makes me realize it's because it's really only gone on for 90 days.
Yeah,
It will have gone on for 90 days since Harris took over late in the game after Biden dropped out. And it makes me realize more than ever, dear God, why do we possibly make it any longer than 90 days? This is fine. Like, let's just do this. And I know that's the case in a lot of the snap elections, or even the planned elections in European countries. They don't start campaigning until a few weeks out, right?
Yeah, nothing formal.
Not years ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they get state funding, so then they can't really spend any money. And I'm sure we'd find some way to ruin it. Somehow, America, we'd still find a way to make it not work well.
I've started seeing ads for my New Jersey governor's race now, which is it's in November next year for like this state governor's race. Like, what are we doing? Like, what?
And they say, and they're always talking about like, oh yeah, nobody actually pays any attention until September anyway. And so it's like, so then who are you talking to? Who are you bothering with all of these video, all these commercials? And I got to watch videos of about how Kamala Harris is a Marxist monster on YouTube for hours on end before I can watch a lovely video.
Pay for YouTube Premium, John.
I should. Commercials offend
listen,
me.
You wanted to touch on we have missed out on 6 months of Chutigawa's the new series, the Disney Plus Doctor Who, and as I admitted to John, and we had a moment, and I had to just come clean. I've not watched any of it, not for any real reason, but I had been kind of out of the Doctor Who loop, and I hadn't sat down and watched it. So I haven't kept in touch. So this is going to be relatively spoiler free, but you wanted to kind of just check in, give your impression, maybe the critical and fan impression so far. The first season is done. Is that
the first season is done? So we have the grand season finale, and then we have a Christmas episode coming up, written by Stephen Moffat, which is great. And they're already filming season 2, or almost done with season 2, I think. Wow. And they just announced actually that one of the villains in season 2 is going to be played by Archie Punjabi, who she was in The Good Wife. She was Felicia's friend in that, and she's been in a bunch of other things that I'm not sure I've seen. But she's great. She's a really great actress. At least I loved her in The Good Wife. And so she seems like she's pretty awesome. So that's an exciting big thing. Yeah, but this season was interesting. It was very short. It was only, I think, 10 episodes, or maybe even 8, which was very short. And apparently they were shooting around Shooty. They were shooting around Shooty. Shooty's finishing up Sex Education. And so there are actually 2 episodes that he's barely in. One of these in for like less than 5 minutes, 73 yards, and another one that he sort of appeared. It's edited and written in a way that he seems to be in it a little more, but still you can tell it's a bit light on him.
So do they focus on the companion? What was her name again?
Ruby. Yes, Ruby? They focus on the companion. Yeah,
she was great, and
she is fantastic. Yeah, so I love her. She's great this season. But it just, the whole thing feels really rushed. And then they try to have some payoffs at the end that seem very unearned. And so that was a little disconcerting. There was a little bit of, Russell T Davies. I was a little annoyed at Russell T Davies because he's sort of hyping these things up, but then kind of doing some very half-ass sort of endings. And it's just like, oh, we're never going to explain why this happened. And you're just like, but it feels like you should explain that. There is a Surprise return from a reasonably obscure 1970s monster. I will leave it at that. You have seen it. You will know the callback in the thing. And it's interesting.
Right, 'cause at this point, I've seen half of the classic.
Yeah. So you'll know, and it wasn't long ago we saw this too. You'll know, well, comparatively, you'll know. But yeah, so it's it was. I loved Judy. I loved her. The writing I thought was a little below. I mean, it's better than it has been, but still a little below what I was hoping it would be. So yes, the behind the scenes drama, of course, is that there's only one more official season left. And then Disney has to renew, and there's rumors that Disney isn't happy, and then Disney's like, "Of course we're happy, we're Disney," and all this back and forth.
But wouldn't it just go on with someone else at the BBC or something?
Presumably, although, obviously it's a huge co-production, so I don't know, does it just cut the budget in half again, and then they're like, look at the puppets. So yeah, like how that all pits. There is one, they have announced a spin-off series, The War Between the Land and the Sea, which features a unit and the Sea Devils, who we've seen a couple times, and the Sea Devils, I guess, are the sea part of the war.
What era? You mean like
modern? I think it's present day. Yeah, I'm guessing they find some more Sea Devils who are like, we've had it.
Kate Lethbridge
Stewart. Yep. And Russell Tovey is in that as one of the stars of that. He was Ensign Midshipman Frame in the Titanic episode that we had. Right. He was the. He was in that, and he's been in like Being Human and some other shows. So they're in production with that now. So presumably that's I think just going to be like a limited, 5-part, 6-part, whatever series. And so yes, we got that going on. I think,
Other than the effects, like the feel of that bigger budget and I guess locations, maybe more location shooting. It looks good. Did they play around with because it's streaming? Like, were the episode lengths more variable or anything?
No, because they were still showing it on the BBC, so they were still somewhat constrained by. And I think that was the other thing that's problematic is they're like, well, the ratings are really low. But it's like, well, but it's
for the BBC or for Disney
for the BBC. They're like, comparatively, it's very low, the overnight ratings. It's like, yeah, but you're releasing it on Disney Plus at midnight. And then not showing it until like 8 hours later,
right?
12 or 16 hours later, whatever it is.
Because all the super fans would just watch it.
Yeah, so everybody's already watching it or downloading or finding it somewhere else. And so it's kind of like, but nobody's watching. It's like, well, yeah, duh. What do you think is going to happen?
And they advertise it a lot on Disney.
That's good. Oh yeah, because you're a Disney guy. You've got kids, so you're on the Disneys.
Well, just whenever we went into the app, it was being pushed. Now maybe that's because it was like, tracking me that I'd watched Doctor Who in other realms. I don't know. Well, okay. Well, we'll continue to check in on that. Probably not in the next couple episodes, but I am going to start to catch up, and then maybe we could start to do a little. We don't do full episode responses because it is post the first 300 stories, but we do
no promises there.
Just
you're on your own.
Light reactions.
Yep. The end of Jodie Whittaker, folks. You're on your own.
Yeah,
we've handheld you enough, and we're pushing you out of the nest.
Well, what are we gonna talk about on this episode?
All right, this episode we've got Peter Capaldi's the season premiere of his I guess his second season, right? Yeah. So Peter Capaldi and Clara are back. Yeah, it's only number 2 in the sort of very epic Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar. Most of the episodes this season are 2-parters, so we're gonna rocket through this season actually. This of course features Davros and the Daleks and a return to Skaro at one point. So I have paired this and I've held this one back, but now we're finally getting pairing it with the very first Dalek story. The title of which we can talk about is a bit it's uncertain what the title is exactly, but most people refer to it as The Daleks.
All right. Yeah, so I believe.
How does this work?
In this section, we start recapping the episodes, and we're going to start with the NuWho, and we're going to start with, as you mentioned, the Magician's Apprentice. It's series 9, episodes 1 and 2, but it is the 254th Doctor Who story. It aired the 19th and the 26th of September in 2015. you mentioned the 12th Doctor, and well, I don't know if you mentioned, but Clara, and then we also have Missy
back,
and some other pals, but that's the kind of team on the goodies. I mean, Missy is kind of a goodie this time around, kind of. I don't
she's
know,
complex, but yeah.
She, by the way, I think pretty solidly is my favorite master. Pretty easily,
not unreasonable. Glad you enjoy it, because there's
think
more coming up.
Yeah, I like. She's very. The master's always, and it's funny. I'm just saying, I'm thinking of this. The master's always very campy.
Yeah,
but camp with her works real well. Like, it just kind of works, and I don't know. I enjoy it.
Well, there's a baddiness to her. Yeah,
she actually, and she has a real river thing going on with her.
She's kind of anti-river. I like that.
In a way. I'm anti-river?
No, she's an anti, like, she's the opposite of river, right? She's kind of
yeah. But she has that kind of like flirty thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, and it's a two-parter, as you mentioned. And don't
forget the clip. Don't forget the clip.
Starts out strong. Oh, right. I have to play the clip.
Yeah, we play a clip.
Gosh. Okay. So here's a clip that John found from the episode Blind on the Street. He found this clip.
Just found it.
If you have redeemed the Time Lords from the fire, do not lose them again. Take the darkest path into the deepest hell, but protect your own, as I have sought to protect mine. Did I do right, Doctor? Tell me. Was I right? I need to know before the end. Am I a good man? You really are dying, aren't you? Look at me. Did you doubt it? Yes. Then we have established one thing only. What? You are not a good doctor.
No, it was a little harsh.
A tour de force performance from Davros on
great performance from Davros.
The Man in the Rubber Mask.
This is sometimes we have Dr. Light episodes, as you mentioned. This whole story is a Davros heavy episode.
Yeah.
Got Davros from all sides. Yep. Baby Davros, Jim Henson's Davros babies.
That should be a spinoff on Disney. It's Davros babies.
Man. So speaking of young Davros, we start with the Doctor showing up in this weird field, or we see this weird field. We see it's a kind of a apocalyptic
war zone
battlefield, right? Yeah. And there's a young boy there, and then this creepy thing comes up where he's stopped and he said there's hand mines. And then these creepy hands come out of the ground all around him, and they grab the guy who's with him, and kind of they pull him under. He explodes. I forgot how it works.
Pull him under the ground.
Pull him under.
The physics of this don't work great, but
it's a great visual.
Image,
it's really cool.
Again, this is classic Stephen Moffat just being like, that will look cool, and then just bunging it in there.
What this reminds me of too, where it's like you start with just the name of like, what about it's not a landmines, hand mines, and then you just make the thing that comes out of that. But it was really cool.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of thing that like his 4-year-old daughter would have said by mistake, and then he'd be like, hand mines.
We're like, where dad we were I was playing chess with Daddy. No, Daddy's gonna be gone for a few hours. So the Doctor shows up and says is gonna try to help the boy. The Doctor's by himself. Interesting. And then we find out that the boy is Davros. So we have a real dilemma here.
Well, and I'll say, and a total shock. They kept this very secret And so there was I mean, maybe deep in the web there were spoilers or whatever, but certainly when I saw it, when it was broadcast, that was a complete. I don't think we even knew that the Daleks were going to be in the episode. So then the idea of like, oh, this is that's Davros it was an excellent surprise and a nice little reminder of why being spoiler free is kind of nice.
Nice, right?
Because it is like this moment of like, oh wow, okay, that is a huge moment, and we were not expecting that remotely. So yes, excellent surprise.
And I have to say though, when that spoiler came, no, that's not right. When that plot
twist
reveal came,
yeah,
I was excited, or I was surprised, but then also
then
a little
hungry,
like,
then a little
then hungry, then forgetful. No, I'm not crazy about Davros. And I'm not really that crazy about Dalek plot lines, so it was a little like, oh, that's a cool twist, but it's gonna be about this. I'd say I feel like they dealt with all really well. Like, and this was definitely my favorite Davros story.
Yeah.
But at first when it came out, it was like, oh, all right. Well, anyway, when we start, I don't remember how we left this season because literally it was 6 months ago last time I watched the last episode. But when we start with in the story, Missy comes. Basically, Missy engages Unit to get with Clara. It was an excuse to get everyone involved here. Like, Missy contacts Unit so that Clara can come over and get the Doctor back. But it was like getting the Doctor back. And my question was like, so were Clara and the Doctor like had gone their separate ways, or was this just like the normal goings on of?
Yeah, so we had ended with the Christmas one, and he thought she had aged whatever without him, and then they woke up from the dream one more time and were like, we should still be friends, and they ran off together in the TARDIS. And then nothing has happened.
It was a fake out, like they were going to separate.
Yeah, it was going to end and it didn't. And so it seems like what they've settled into is a sort of, she's got her career and whatever, and he pops up from time to time. They go off and have adventures.
I don't know, Clara. You can't have it all. You can't have it all.
I think that might be a theme of this season. But yes, so off they. Clearly they haven't seen each other for a while, and then Missy wants to get in touch with the Doctor because of the confession dial.
Yeah. By the way, Missy, yes, still my favorite Master character. Straight up just murders about 10 people from Unit.
Yeah,
early on in this episode.
Stop it.
To get Clara's attention, and then becomes pretty good for the rest of the episode. But it was just pretty aggressive. Anyway, I guess just wanting, maybe that was the reason, is like, well, we're going to have her be kind of on Team Doctor here for this episode,
but she's still dangerous.
Start you out, remembering that she's still dangerous. And Missy has gotten his confession dial, which is the last will and testament of a Time Lord, and so they believe like, oh, the Doctor is dying or in trouble or something, like, because it was given to Missy, as she says, because it gets given to the Doctor's closest friend and closest compatriot, and so Clara was like, oh, okay, you're coming to give it to me, and Missy says, no, that's me, like we've been friends forever. So I'm going to come back to that because
that'll be a theme
true,
for this
or do you think she just took it, or
I like the line. I think it's the line of something like, he keeps trying to kill you, and you keep trying to kill him, and she's like, that's our texting.
Okay, so the Doctor's in ancient England. He's in I guess like the Middle Ages, kind of. But he's there at one of these like kind of champions fights where there's
like at medieval times.
Exactly. And
historically accurate medieval times.
And Peter Capaldi has clearly given Stephen Moffat the production note that he would like to play guitar in this season.
Yes.
And so he comes in playing. The Doctor seems to be having a ball in this old England area. He's coming in. He has a tank there. Like there's all this.
And by the way, so on the guitar thing, maybe we talk about it. Peter Capaldi was in a punk band in the '80s with Craig Ferguson from.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So he's coming in playing guitar. He's gonna fight this person, but it's more of an act. Like they're there to like in front of a crowd for fun, but it's interrupted by I think first by Clara and Missy, and then the snake guy.
Yeah, and then the snake guy, Colony Sarth.
So yeah, this cool baddie comes out here, who's this person who's made of many snakes who then like coil together and look like a person.
Yeah,
very interestingly done. It's a cool effect. And says Davros.
He's riding around on a Segway under the ropes. That's why he's able to do that.
For real?
So, yeah, that's why he's able to move so sort of weirdly, is that he's on a little Segway.
And they give the Doctor the terrible news that like Davros is dying. It's just so funny because it's presented, and the Doctor doesn't totally react sort of as they might expect, but he actually is sort of linked in similar the way that Missy says, well, actually the Doctor's my best friend. Like he's very linked with Davros, but so Davros is dying and he's asking for you. Excuse me. And ultimately, along with some threats of violence, decides to go. I feel like sort of because it's like his dying wish is he wants to see you there, and the Doctor is sort of honoring it, right? I mean, he's sort of taken hostage.
Yeah, they sort of take him away and they beam him to the prison place or something like that.
But Clara and Missy go along with, which the Doctor says no, but they go along with.
Of course.
And we see the TARDIS is kind of taken away for them. Davros says, I don't control the Daleks. And it seems like the Daleks have destroyed like the TARDIS and everything. So then we see the Doctor back with young Davros, and it looks like he's going to kill Hitler essentially.
Right,
he goes back in time to do what he should have done, which is murder Davros at that time. We don't know all the timing of this, right? Like,
well, yeah, we don't know when that happens. So we don't know when he runs into him first. We don't know when that happens. But the implication is that, the TARDIS is destroyed, and I think they think Clara and Missy are both killed as well.
Yeah.
The Doctor's furious. Of course. And so the implication is, okay, when he gets the chance, he's going to travel back in time and kill Davros, because that will prevent the horrible thing happening to the Master, Missy, and Clara. And smash cut cliffhanger.
Right,
world trembled.
Cool cliffhanger. Surprisingly, Clara's not dead. Clara will never die. It's just
you wait. Yeah,
cockroaches and Clara will be around. But anyway, we do find Missy and Clara kind of a cool team up. They're now outside
Very
of
funny. Yep.
What's it called?
Skaro. They're on
Skaro. I was going to say Scar. Skaro.
Yeah.
They got to get back into the city.
Just the dialogue with them in that is it's very funny, because Missy's, as you say, Missy's brilliantly funny, and they're wandering around, and like at one point there's like she's got Clara hanging upside down on like a rope trap or whatever, and threatening her or whatever, and then cuts her down, and she's like, well, do we have any weapons? Missy's like, I have a pointy stick. Clara's like, can I have a pointy stick? He's like, no. And then at one point they're looking down into the sewer thing, and they're like, about how far would you say that is? And Missy pushes Clara into it. Yeah. It's like, it looks like about 20 feet.
20 feet. Well, they make their way in, and they come in through the sewer. Mm-hmm. And the thing we found out about the Chekhov's dead Daleks, we find out about
sewer.
Basically that like when Daleks die or become not useful anymore, they're chucked into the sewer, but they don't die. They just stay there,
it's sort of
decaying and insane.
Yeah.
They just become ooze, essentially.
This is a real commentary on the way we treat our elderly, which I think is the same. We put them in homes and they decay and become insane and start voting for Trump. So it is exactly what happens. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get so raw and political, but that's the new mind probe, folks.
So I forget. Well, so we don't know what happened with the Doctor back with young Davros, right? I mean, that's not really.
Yeah, it just says exterminate, and then it cuts, and then we don't pick up where that left off. I don't think until the end of the episode is what it tells.
The Doctor's back with Davros. Davros is saying,
as they say.
Say it again.
Having a chinwag,
having a chinwag,
good old conversation,
and it seems like It sort of seems like Davros is doing the villain thing of like, let me tell you all my plans, but it's not really. Actually, it goes on for so long that it really does start to genuinely seem that Davros is dying, and he's just sort of pensive and talking about his life and saying, "Here's what I've done. Here's what we've done together. You and I are very similar, like that kind of a thing."
I think,
And
and I'm glad you said that, because that is to me one of the more astonishing parts of, and why Stephen Moffat is such a great writer, I guess, is that I had the same impression where I was like, all right, well, this is clearly a trap, and then it goes on long enough in such a convincing way that I was like, oh, maybe he has changed, and like, oh, this is amazing moment, and like when he opens his eyes at that one point and something like that, it's just like, oh,
part of his thing with and he's not clearly not trying to actively kill the Doctor, even though the Doctor's killing several Daleks in front of him, stuff like that. And he says, I just wanted to see, because now he saw him as a boy, and he's like, I just wanted to see the sunset one more time.
Yeah.
And I'm dying, I'm passing away. And he doesn't ask the Doctor this. Well, sorry. He offers to the Doctor that, like, look, you could step over here into all these tubes. He has these little pneumatic tubes that are a great, just like old BBC looking prop. But that say, like, you could transmit energy through all this and just kill all the Daleks right here. Like, you could just do that. And the Doctor like refuses. And then when he's later telling him, like, I just want to survive to see one more sunset, but I'm fading, and the sunset's like 10 minutes away, the Doctor says, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of my regeneration energy so you can just see the sunset.
Boop. Yeah.
But when he does it, it actually is sending regeneration. It locks into him, takes that regeneration energy more than he intended to give, and gives it to all the Daleks on Skaro.
Yeah.
And so he's created these hybrid Dalek doctors, Dalek Time Lords. I think at that moment, Skaro kind of lives a bit longer too there, because he's taking the regeneration energy. And so now the Doctor's in a real pickle. So it was a turn, but yeah, it's such an incredibly long game.
Yeah.
And again, I think going back through it the second time when I was thinking about it, I think he had a plan here where there were two moments where the Doctor could have done this. Like, he could have hooked up to it to kill the Daleks, and maybe that would have worked into the plan too. Or this moment where he's going to hook in the regeneration energy. Maybe either way would have worked. I don't know, but like it was setting up the Doctor with all these feelings, setting him up about how he's a bad person, how he's a bad Doctor, and then saying, okay, I'm giving you this opportunity to be good, and then taking advantage of it. So pretty evil genius stuff there from Davros. So then they're off to save the day here, and what we end up finding out is that the dead Daleks that are in the sewers have also been reanimated with energy, and they're basically going to come back and kill everybody.
With the wonderful line, "Your sewers are revolting."
Yes. One thing along the way here to get past some certain security things, Clara gets put inside a Dalek, which is a fun little thing. And then we find out that, like, when you communicate as a Dalek, many of the things that we would say to mean anything positive just get translated, any emotion just get translated into exterminate, and anything you say you are, any sort of individuality you might be saying, it just translates to I'm a Dalek. Like, that's all you say. So later, Missy, who has been helping along the way, then won't tell the Doctor this, and the Doctor is trying to kill all the Daleks and would be killing Clara. But in this moment,
Missy
Clara
eggs him on.
gets this Dalek to say, show me mercy, which the Dalek shouldn't be saying. He opens it up. We never quite figure out how that was able to happen, but basically, like, Clara's humanity was able to overcome this somehow.
Yeah, I think she maybe, like,
or maybe now this Dalek has a bit of the Doctor
open
in it. I don't know.
I think it was basically like, you can. I don't think Clara knew how to open it or something, and he's like, just think open or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
And I love Missy's reaction, like, oh my God, it's her. Like, even though she knew, she's like, oh look, it's her, and the Doctor's like, you need to leave.
So anyway, the city is destroyed. Why is like I guess the ooze people come out, but they just blow up the city? Why does that happen?
I mean, I think they
exactly?
destroy all the Daleks. I don't remember. Was there an explosion?
I thought there was like an
know.
explosion.
The status
Anyway,
of Skaro is also confusing because it was
um,
technically blown up.
Doctor and Clara leave, and Missy's still there with a bunch of Daleks. And then there's an interesting moment where she's like, "Wait, I have an idea," and then we leave her. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where she's left. So that seems like you'd be coming back to it.
One would think.
And then we go back to the boy, and we said, and he does save him, I guess, as he did initially.
Yeah.
And
I'm assuming. I guess that's a flashback of or some other. Well, no, at some point the Doctor must have left Clara, or maybe he goes. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched this too, but yeah.
But assumedly, then Davros does die in this.
Oh, I don't know, because I guess he's got. I don't think we've seen him again, so maybe. But I think he got a little bit of that juice back or whatever, and he seems to be unable to die. Yeah, this is I think Stephen Moffat, when he talked about this one after it came out, was like, he's like, I just thought, what would it be like to write the season finale but as the opening story? And he was like, what would be the biggest opening I could have?
I like that.
And he came up with this, and it really is entirely goes back to Genesis of the Daleks, which we've watched, I think, which is my number one. And that moment where the Doctor is talking to Davros and says, if you could see a child and I told you that child would grow up to be a terrible dictator that would kill millions of people, would you kill that child? And it's this sort of ethical debate between Davros and the Doctor. And so Stephen Moffat, I think, was like, all right, what if I actually turn that into an entire story? And even in the story, there's a moment where Davros shows a clip from Genesis of the Daleks. It's like, let's take a look at a clip. Interestingly, no, and I'm even mischaracterized it. The conversation was between the Doctor and Sarah. Davros wasn't even there, so I don't know if I guess the CCTV at the time really had some really good production values. And Davros must have combed through it later. But either way, we'll just ignore that. But yeah, so that's the that's sort of the big premise of this. It is a pretty spectacular opening story. You do have Missy back, which is very quick. Remember, she was killed at the end of the last one. And he kind of explains it as like, oh, she's got a, the Doctor always has a plan. Like, she does that whole thing about the Doctor's plans and stuff like that. And then she, says the same thing and kind of explains her return. Brief unit appearance. We'll see them later in the season. This is and then introducing the concept of the hybrid, which becomes sort of the season arc, but one of the more confusing season arcs.
Yes.
And it seems like every couple episodes, someone's like, "This is the hybrid," and the Doctor's like, "No, that's not it." So yeah, so just set up like, which is sort of half Time Lord, half Dalek, right? That was the.
Which seems purposeful, but not that effective. But anyway, for now, we're just hearing about it, and it seems like they're saying that they're creating these hybrids of Daleks and the Doctor, and that something's going to come from that. So I left this episode wondering like, oh, I guess this something is going to come that's going to be a hybrid Dalek. And I thought something with Missy, like that was like something was happening with that. Like,
and it just becomes a bit of a trend in later Doctor Who now, which is and look, I get it. You're writing a series that's been on for 60 years, so you're going to happen. But it's like, I do love these things that are like, this myth is like a foundational myth of the Time Lords, and it's been something that has dominated my life for millennia and stuff like that. And it's like, how come this is the first we're hearing of it? It's like, it's built up to be this huge thing. It's like, oh, no one's ever mentioned this before. Now suddenly everybody's talking about it. But I get that's how
it also made me want to know more about this war that birthed Davros, and like seeing him and his culture. Were they on Skaro? Were they the dolls? Like what?
So
what was that?
This is going to be the common frame. Big Finish has done a series called I Davros, and they've had several a young Davros, the attack that crippled him, Davros, and then the current, and it's a 4-part series, and it does kind of go into how he became Davros. It's very, very good, actually. But no Doctor, just that story. So you can always count on Big Finish to step in.
No stone unturned.
Fill in those gaps.
All right. Well, why don't we move on to our classic episode, which, as you mentioned, they didn't know how to title things. They titled individual episodes at this point, so there wasn't necessarily a title for the arc, but
it was known. Let's see. It's been for a long time. It was called The Mysterious Planet because that was the name of the first episode. Which isn't bad. It also had, I think, a working title, The Mutants, which is okay, but not particularly specific. And then I think eventually became most commonly referred to as the Daleks.
Well, it is a 7-parter, and it does have some fluff, as some of these 7-parters do. But it also
didn't find the riveting 20-minute rope coming over scene.
But I will say, with that said, it's also packing in an incredible amount of information about the Daleks from the beginning. Not left as, they explain a lot. It isn't one of those where like, oh, I wonder how this works. It's like, no, they tell you most everything about the Daleks, which I'm sure is part of the appeal of it. It was the second Doctor Who story ever, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It aired and kind of the first Christmas special. It aired during Christmas time. 21st of December was the first one, and then it aired through all of January, and the last one was on February 1st. So December 1963 through February 1964, 7 episodes. We have obviously the first Doctor, and it's very early on. So we still have Susan and Barbara and Ian.
Yep.
And let's listen to a clip from
the very Daleks. First meeting of the Doctor and the Daleks.
Yeah.
Do not move out of the light. Sit on the floor. You are one of the Thal people.
I don't understand you.
Why are you suffering from radiation?
Why? Because we were not aware of it until it was too late, that's why.
No, that is not true. We know that Thals have existed outside our city. The truth is your supply of drugs has failed, and you came into the city to see if you could find more.
No. Thals, what are you talking about? We're not sows, or whatever you may call them. Don't you see we're very ill?
You and your companions need a drug to stay alive.
We have no drugs. A drug. Drugs left outside the TARDIS.
TARDIS? He is becoming delirious. I do not understand his words.
Listen to me.
Stay in the light.
Very exciting. Yeah. That is the very first confrontation between William Hartnell and the Daleks, between the Doctor and the Daleks.
And I was interested by this because, have I seen the second iteration of the Daleks?
Yes. So the Daleks' invasion of Earth is their second appearance, and so that's the one, that you really liked. Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so what I was interested in is when does it become? If this is truly the first time the Doctor's meeting the Daleks, at some point it becomes like, oh, of course, me and the Daleks, we're linked forever, but not before this moment. Like, this was the time they met?
Yeah, no, this is supposedly the first time ever, at least in the Doctor's chronology. Although, it's going to get messy because the fugitive Doctor. Anyway, we'll get to that. Doctor's chronology, yes, and it was after it was Dalek invasion of Earth where they come back, and the Doctor's like, "Well, I know the Daleks; they're evil. I must set myself against them." And then in the chase, which I don't believe we've seen yet, but then in the chase they start coming after the Doctor. So the grudge develops very quickly. So it's by the third time they meet that they're like mortal enemies.
Actually, you know what? Part of I'm thinking of too, I realize is actually in between Classic and NuWho is when the concept of the time war
right, exactly.
happens, and so that's completely only NuWho. That's not in Classic.
Exactly.
One of the most important things about this episode that we should mention is that Terry Nation wrote it, and cannily asked for the rights to the Daleks.
Yeah.
However he worked that out, that was one of the smartest moves. Like that goes down with, I think, Peter Jackson, like negotiated a cut of like the points
George
on the Lord of
Lucas
the
on the
Rings.
action figures.
George
Yeah.
Lucas on the licensing for Star Wars.
Well, and I
smart.
believe this is correct. In one of those wild only Doctor Who world coincidences, Terry Nation's agent was, I believe, named Sue Virtue, Bertue, who is the mother-in-law of Stephen Moffat. So there you go. It all comes together. But yes, oddly, and there are a few others. The Brigadier is technically co-owned by some writers. There are a few others. K9, I think, is co-owned by Bob Baker, Dave Martin.
Well, I bought those rights now. I mean, I own the K9
you're a
rights
huge
now.
K9, but only to bury them, only to be like, you can never show K9 again. So there are a few that I guess had canny negotiators. And yeah, the funny thing is, Terry Nation was a comedy writer. And I think he had of course, he's been interviewed many times, and he was fired from, I think he was offered the writing on Doctor Who. I don't know why they thought he'd be a good writer for Doctor Who. I guess they were like, please, will anyone write for this? And so they offered him, they offered him the gig. He turned it down, and I think he got fired from his writing show, which I want to say was like somebody named Spike Milligan, who's a sort of a big British comedian at the time.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, hey, about that job offer, you still got something?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so he was like, and I think he wrote it in like a weekend or something. He was just like, take the money and fly like a thief. And so yeah, it's a very interesting. And then he is, fun trivia fact, he is was a writer and I think a producer on the original MacGyver.
Oh,
There
wow.
you go. Yeah, right. There you
go. Well, anyway, so he wrote the second story ever, and so kind of putting us back into context, the first story, the Doctor is a spaceman and stuff like that, and we're in a space, we're in the TARDIS, we're in a spacecraft. But then we go to prehistoric time.
Right.
So this is also our first time on another planet with the Doctor.
Yes. And remember we saw Adventure in Space and Time, the miniseries about making Doctor Who, and they and this is in the big mythological legends of it. It was supposed to be an educational show. There would be some science fiction elements, but Sidney Newman, the guy who sort of started it, said one of his rules was no bug-eyed monsters. I don't want this to be a stupid sci-fi show. And Verity Lambert, the producer, when they were making this episode, was like, approved it or whatever, and he saw the Daleks or something. He said, "I told you, no bug-eyed monsters," and she like fought for it. Then you have that scene in Adventure in Space and Time where like she comes into the office and he says like, "Oh, 14 million viewers." He's like, "Yeah, what do I know?" It was like, good job. So yeah,
I want to hear more about the critical reception here. But anyway, the plot of this is relatively straightforward. It's more about the trappings of what's going on and stuff. But they land on the planet. There's still a lot of, understandably so, Ian and Barbara being like, "We would like to go back home as promised." So that thankfully they move past that, after a few stories go on. But it's just like, yeah, because it becomes so unbelievable, and Ian's doing a little bit of that overwrought acting, like, "But we must get home, Doctor." Like it's very little broad, and it's just not that compelling. It's like you'd rather have the people who want to be here rather than the people who are like. But anyway, they're trying to get back home. But the Doctor's on this new planet and wanting to investigate, and he invents this idea that where the fluid link needs mercury, and which is fake.
Wonderfully, I mean, I get that it's a little rough, but in a wonderfully blocked scene where they're all like, "All right, we're gonna take off now," and then the Doctor's like, and then just like for no reason just goes underneath the console, rips the fluid link out, and then stands up, and then the whole thing goes to pot, and then he's like, "Oh no, something's happened." Like goes down, and they're like, "Oh, all right," like it's just like a little clumsy, but yeah.
By the way, maybe you'd remember these. I didn't write them down. I haven't seen this early era of Doctor Who in a while, and Hartnell just says the wrong words sometimes and then corrects himself.
Yeah,
but they clearly don't have additional takes, so it's like they just keep rolling on.
This was they had when these originals first season, I think at least, it was still very early on in days of TV, and if you made an edit, you literally cut the film, taped it together, and carried on. And so they basically allowed one edit per episode. So usually somewhere in the middle, there's like they have to do some major scene transition or something like that. So yeah, there's basically one. So if there was a fluff or mistake, it was like live theater. You just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get this very interesting moments.
Well, so anyway, the Doctor sends them on this goose chase to go find Mercury, and they decide, let's go into this. They see a city. Ian finds a city, and they head to, by the way, I do like this either is a mistake or not, but I like that he calls him Chesterfield in addition to Chesterton.
Yeah, that becomes
maybe
a
it was a
running
mistake,
joke.
but I think it's a dismissive thing.
They turned it into a running joke, and he keeps getting his name wrong. Yes.
So they go down to the city. They find pretty abandoned, and they don't see there. Oh, and by the way, where they land, they're like, oh, it's a petrified forest. Everything's rock. Like nothing is alive here. The Doctor says very confidently, like absolutely nothing is alive here.
Yeah.
They get down to the city,
and then they're like, so nothing to worry about. Like,
nothing to worry about.
We just wander around. No
so they go inside searching for Mercury. He admits to them, is like, yeah, I didn't really need this. I just wanted to investigate. And we get the end of episode 1, which is the Dalek bearing down on Barbara, but we only see the Dalek probe.
Yeah.
And that's it. We don't see the full thing. And it's the scream. And kind of all of these things are the first time you've seen any of them in Doctor Who.
Yep.
Like there were cliffhangers in Unearthly Child, but like this was like cliffhanger, space alien attacking, the scream. Did we have screams in Unearthly Child? Do we have the like
there's some, but this is definitely like the classic sort of the archetype for cliffhangers from here on out, which is like,
and Barbara's great, by the way. I haven't watched Barbara in a while. She's great.
Yeah. And we should say William Russell passed away recently, just a few months ago at 99 years old. So we just lost Ian, but and he both of them are great in this episode.
Yeah, they're both great.
I mean, they're kind of. I mean, Ian's kind of the lead. I mean, the Doctor's there, but he passes out halfway through episode 2. He doesn't come back for.
I also really liked Susan a lot more in this one.
I was going to ask you about that. You have a complex relationship with Susan.
It's pretty anti-Susan, especially in Unearthly Child, and she's still not my favorite. They don't treat her very well. I mean, they treat her like more of a child than she really looks like. They treat her like a 12-year-old.
Right.
She seems to be like, I don't know, 17, 18. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think she's supposed to be like, when she's a student in school, so she's supposed to be maybe 15, 16, right, or something like that.
And it's not just that she's young. There's this part of the argument early on with who's going to go do what is very, very like masculine focused. Like, well, clearly I'm the only one who could help. When they're talking about going back to the ship, so they get here, they're captured by the Daleks. We meet the Daleks, we learn more about them. They're not as aggressive as we come to know the Daleks eventually, but they are extremely interesting. The voice is the Dalek voice from the moment one. It is that voice. Like, it is compelling and weird. And the way the tone rises on the end. Yeah. So every single sentence they take, it's constantly going. It's like, it's so unsettling, like, to listen to. Yeah. And Terry Nation's writing is great, but like so much of the Daleks is just how they're brought to life. Like
what they look like. Yeah.
So anyway, they've also found out that they're suffering from radiation poisoning, that this whole planet, or at least this whole area, has gone through a neutron bomb attack, which has left all the structures in place, but it has irradiated everything. So they sent
Susan about in 1963. That's
pretty topical.
That's not like isn't that weird, crazy? That's like, that's probably what's going to happen to us. So,
they send Susan back because really, I guess they say at that moment it's, we want to send her back to get the TARDIS to get us out of here. To then
she's gonna get the drugs. Remember, the Thals leave the drugs outside the ship.
But that's later. First, they're just going back to the TARDIS to go so they can get back somewhere where they can be helped. Sorry.
No.
That's why they're getting the Mercury, is to get the TARDIS to work. Okay. Well, anyway. Yes, they find anti radiation drugs. And yes, when she goes back, she finds out that these have been left out by the Thals. We meet the Thals. They were at war for, then I guess it's been like hundreds of years.
They've
been underground, kind of.
Yeah. Because they've had enough to mutate, right? They've mutated full circle, whereas the Daleks have not. Yeah.
Right. So the dolls and the Daleks, like it's the dolls, like THAL, and the Daleks. It's they're started probably pretty similarly, but they were at war. It ended in this nuclear attack. Again, I'm sure this is very top of mind. And then well, you're right. It's long enough it's quote long enough so they could have been evolved, but they say a few hundred years, which is not at all long enough for them to have evolved. But let's set that aside. Maybe the radiation has enhanced their
radiation. Who knows? More,
but they've learned to live with the radiation. They've developed drugs. They've kind of advanced their civilization. But they're extreme wusses. They're pacifists. Real lamos. Whereas the Daleks are cool and hip. They're smoking cigarettes. They're killing people. My daughters happened to walk in while I'm watching this episode, and their great feature of the Daleks that they immediately like laughed at and were like impressed with is when they exchanged the part with the plungers. They used the plungers and they're like, "Ha, this is amazing." They're like, she immediately wanted to mimic that. She was like, "I'm gonna hold up a thing and you take it from me with your plunger." Like immediately like laughed at it, thought it was silly, but also immediately was like, "I want to do that. Like I want to act like that." So you can see the attraction of the Daleks.
Why they appealed. Yeah.
So they're at war, and the humans and the Doctor are really the humans. Again, in the first Doctor, the Doctor just kind of along for the ride. He's not pushing the narrative as much. He's a scientist. He's like, I want to observe and learn about this. The humans are saying, "Oh, can't we broker peace here?" It's just like, we want to jump in the Middle East and solve everything. It's like, oh, I'm sure we can solve the dolls and the Daleks.
Easy peasy.
And they say, let's broker peace. We can give you these drugs. We can exchange. And the Daleks are like, that sounds great. And then they murder everyone.
Yeah.
So now we're getting more of the Daleks as we know.
That we know of.
And yes, we find that the dolls are pacifist, but they can't leave. They only want to stay. And so the humans are like, look, sometimes the humans are like, please fight with them.
Yeah.
Please murder them. But
it's an interesting, obviously it's a key moment of like the episode. And it is an interesting morality sort of debate. But it's an interesting reflection of the times. And, obviously we're talking about post World War II UK. I mean, most of the people watching would have been fought in the war. I'd remember the Blitz. I mean, it's only been 20 years and all that kind of stuff. And there's very much it'd be interesting if they try to do this now, whether the whole, hey, you guys, we really need our fluid link back. So we're going to need you all to die in a massive war with us. And Ian is the one who's kind of like, I'm not wild about this, but I guess we'll make it happen. But it's like now that it would have gone in a completely different direction. Right. I mean, but like the message here seems to be like, you can't sit around and you got to kill people. You can't sit around and not fight in wars.
And they do. All right. They're coming in with this kind of very, I guess like colonial attitude, if you will, coming in and being like, oh, these poor sweet little villagers, let us teach. We know better than them. Let us immediately assume that we will teach them and, show them the better ways and stuff like that. Like it's their assumption that like a new race that they meet is one that they have advice to give to. And by the way, that these people are very accepting. It was like, please tell us your ideas about how we should change our entire world. So anyway, they rile them up and get them to attack the Daleks, and the Daleks are destroyed, and they never hear from them again. So it's great.
Terry Nation said in a quote, he said, "No one has ever killed off their creation quite as thoroughly as I did mine in that first episode." Like it's like, and then he apparently was like, and then they became popular, and they were like, he was like, "What are you gonna do, Terry?" And then he's like, "Oh, I know." And then the producer's like, "Dude, it's a time travel show." And he's like, "Ah."
Yes, but also then it continues the pretty much every time, like every Dalek episode, they are all wiped out by the end of every episode. Like
always
it's just always happens. So that's the Daleks, and then we immediately also begin the idea of like that they go to a new place, but they're knocked out, and that's the edge of destruction is where they're headed into, which is rough. But
so many tropes here, right? So many things that
it is a really interesting first three. Now that we can get here, have we seen the fourth episode? Have I seen the fourth episode?
No, Marco Polo's coming up though, and that's
so it's a pretty interesting. I'll just say the first 3 here where it's like what a TV show. What a weird TV show. Hey, I'm a spaceman in a time travel box. We're going to go to prehistoric times. Then we'll have the Daleks.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have this weird psychological, what's the director's name? It reminded me of one of those psychological thrillers. It reminded me of The Shining or something like that.
Right.
That
Kubrick
destruction.
or something.
Kubrick. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. It's just what a
and then Marco Polo.
And
then Marco Polo, which is coming up, is a sort of lush BBC historical drama. Like there's no sci-fi in it. It's just like here's a very and so it is. It's all over the map. And this is the reason we're here. Why all of humanity is here. But without this story, there's no Doctor Who. This is the story that exploded. Like the first story went over okay, and there are only like 2 channels to watch. So I mean, you're gonna get everybody kind of watching it. But yeah, and as Adventure in Space and Time kind of covers, this came on and everybody just went crazy for the Daleks.
Right, and then right, and you might imagine a sort of standard sci-fi fan of that time might be like, oh cool, this is cool, it's a new sci-fi thing, they're interesting, they look different. Then you get Edge of Destruction and you're like, okay, like they're on a spaceship the whole time, so it'd be like, okay. And then you'd get Marco Polo and be like, what is this? Like but yet people kept tuning in, waiting for more Daleks, and then eventually they got Cybermen and stuff like that.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, people wanted the Daleks to come back. It is, yes, you say they really do appear pretty fully formed. The voices are pretty good. This is we should shout out to the designer Ray Cusick, who is the one who actually came up. But so Terry Nation described them vaguely, but not particularly specific. And supposedly, I think this is true. Supposedly, he said he wanted them to not appear to be a man in a suit, and that was one of his directions. And then I think he'd gone to the ballet and he'd seen the Georgian state dancers, and it was one of those where they had these long skirts that went all the way to the floor, and then they would glide across the floor, and it looked like they didn't have any. And so he pointed to that as like, oh, that's kind of their movement. And so Ray Cusick comes up with this design for them, and it is the design that can to this day. And unfortunately, unlike Terry Nation, Ray Cusick just worked for the BBC, so he got nothing. Terry Nation became a millionaire. The Doctor Who exploded. I think supposedly later, at some point, feeling slightly guilty, the BBC gave him like a bonus, like a couple £100 or something like that. It was like, hey, thanks for making us rich, appreciate it. But yeah, so shout out to Ray Cusick, who designed. Interestingly, the designer who was assigned to the story originally, but was reassigned or ended up having to do something else, was Ridley Scott. So this is in his early days before he became a huge director. So who knows how Ridley Scott would have designed the Daleks. But yeah, this is it is a 7-parter, so it does have a few moments of and like I was joking at the beginning, I do love the lengthy sequence in like episode 6 where they're jumping over like a chasm, and it's just back Ian throwing the rope over and then the person tying them around.
Yeah, they still often in these ones and in any of these 6-parters in general, there's a lot of like, let's talk about what we can do. Let's decide what we're going to do. Let's talk about why we're doing it. Like there's just so much padding.
But then you do think, it's like, okay, again, second episode, no money. The budget on these things was minimal, and obviously one cut. So basically live to tape, essentially. And somebody had the ambition to be like, all right, we're going to go to an alien planet. There's going to be a city in the distance. Then we're going to go in the alien city. Then we're going to go through like a deadly swamp filled with monsters and caves. And we're going to have and we're going to design these all new. It's like the ambition is spectacular, right? It's just like they would do that.
Also, I would say the Daleks, when they're on the ship moving around, they move around better in this than even some of the other early Dalek episodes. They look really like seamless, and they move around very well. Yeah, and there seem like there are a lot of them, and it seemed they only had 4. It seems like
they only had 4. 4 of them.
It really comes across like there are a lot of them.
Yeah, it
So
is an impressive accomplishment for story number 2, and it holds up today. It's a good story to watch, and I think as I mentioned to you, although props to Porter for watching all 7 black and white classic episodes. As part of the 60th anniversary, they broadcast, I think, on the BBC again, but they edited together all 7 episodes into, I think, about an hour and 10 minutes, maybe. Colorized them, which is kind of interesting, and did the Daleks in color. And it was okay. It for today's audiences, it probably worked well. It does feel very rushed. Like there's a few times when it's kind of edited together and you're just like, whoa, and it's moving very fast. But yeah, this is it. This is why we're all here.
I was supposed to sing a song here. But it's
more
been
spoken word now.
such a long time. They're robots, they're plungers, they're robots with their plungers. Punch, fight, fight, fight. It's the Dalek
theme show.
Yeah, I don't know. The theme songs, we'll see if I can make the theme songs make a comeback. But the themes will be here. And the themes
will be here.
We are adherent to the repeating themes on Know the Mind Probe. We like to look at ideas and topics that are threaded throughout Doctor Who stories and through time and space itself. John, what themes did you want to touch on in this episode?
Well, let's talk about the complexity of our villains. Do we like them to be complex or not? Because we've dealt with Missy, we've got Davros, and then we've got, of course, the original villains of the Daleks themselves in these stories. And certainly for both Missy, and we're going to see more of this season and way next. They're trying to make Missy like this. Well, their relationship is more complex, and maybe she's not the terrible person we've all seen and stuff like that. Which to me, I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm along for the ride, Steven. I call him Steven. I'm along for the ride, Steven. And I text him and he doesn't answer. But part of me is also like, but this person that they're like, well, they're not all that bad, has killed billions of people.
Right.
As you point out, has murdered at least 10 very nice people, presumably just in the opening episode alone. And they're sort of like, well, they're more complicated than that. And the same, you've got Davros here who talks us into sort of, as we said, like, yeah, okay, like maybe I'm gonna feel a little sympathy to him. Again, he has killed billions of people, and we know he wiped out the Thals in Genesis of the Daleks and has done all these terrible things and built the Daleks and destroyed all these people. And then you have the Daleks in the original story, and they're sort of portrayed with a little more complexity. Is sort of like, well, look, they are, there was this massive war. I don't know if it's ever established who started the war, but they've obviously become twisted by it, and but their evil comes from a place where it's like, well, all right, it's a terrible thing happened, a trauma happened to them, and and then they give up on just become evil or whatever. But it's like, okay, do I like complexity in my villains or not? Do I just want a mustache twirling, like he's the bad guy, she's the bad guy, they're the bad guy, and I don't want to deal with, I'm not watching this because I want a deep psychological profile of bad people, or is it like, well, yeah, I like the idea that Davros has got layers to him, and maybe, maybe there's one point where I could decide I love him. What kind of villains do you like?
Yeah, it's and also sometimes it comes after a time, like you initially are just happy with the, I just need their motivation that like they are against the thing, a good moral thing, or they are against the hero or whatever. And then sometimes it's like after a while you're like, I kind of want to know more now. Like, it develops over time. There's like the Joker in The Dark Knight is in the Dark Knight. Yeah, it's called The Dark Knight, right? Yeah, the Heath Ledger Joker.
Yeah.
I guess the Joker in general. It's like, do we need to know that he was damaged as a person, or like, do we need to know the specifics of that? And I guess there was that newer movie which purportedly might be showing some of that, or maybe not.
Oh,
but like you could read it as
with
that.
Joaquin Phoenix.
And I think in the Batman comics and the movies, I guess too, the Joker, you hear lots of origin stories of the Joker, and it's never clear which is true, and they're all plausible. Like, this is how he became the Joker.
I mean,
and
the definitive Cesar Romero Joker, of course.
Well, you know how he became
layers
the Joker,
and layers of depth. Yeah.
Beautiful
performance.
So that became a thing where it's like that I think is an interesting take on it, and that they tell lots of interesting. They spend stories on the origin of the Joker, and which of them is true. Doesn't really matter. Any of them. They're all. It's like, was it interesting to hear that? It's like, yeah, sure. Another example of like, the complexity or like the why behind the villain is like the entire set of Star Wars prequels.
Yeah.
It's like, did that explain why Darth Vader is like, he literally killed? That's another one. Like, doesn't the Death Star or whatever he helps build kill like entire planets of people?
Yeah.
So it's like, do I
That's
need to know? It's that
great
because like
example.
some slaves killed his mom. It's like, okay, that sounds bad. I don't know that he has to like murder, solar systems.
Well, and so that's a great example and good tie into James Earl Jones. So it's all
yes.
coming together. But yeah, we watched the original 3 Star Wars movies
Yeah,
before the prequels are gleaming in his eye, and Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi is redeemed in like 5 minutes before he dies, and everybody's like, oh, like
yeah.
he kills the Emperor because he sees him killing Luke. Sorry, everybody. Spoiler alert.
Sorry,
He kills the Emperor, and then takes his mask off and is like, "Oh, I'm not that bad." I'm sorry, I don't know why he's suddenly Jewish there. Hey, I'm not that bad, guys. Hey, but it's like, oh, I'm not that bad. And Luke's like, oh, sad, and then goes away. And we're all kind of like, all right, yeah, he killed a lot of people, genocidal. One of the most. I mean, it's hard. Maybe it's hard for people to understand this. When we were kids, Darth Vader was the epitome of evil, right? He was the most evil thing that had ever been shown on screen, and then but redeemed himself within 5 minutes.
That's
we were all on board for it.
And again, to your point, for that scene, not that you forgave Darth Vader, but for that scene, you're like, oh, he is losing his dad. It's like, and it's because it's human, and you get involved in a bunch of things where it's like, well, yes, he's terrible, but also this is Luke's only family, and finally they might have been able to have a relationship, and now he's dead. Like, so it's like, okay. So I think the complexity can be used. I think early on, no, you don't need it. I just think if the villain sticks around, then you just start to want to tell stories about some of them, and you do genuinely want to know their outlook on life, and maybe to some extent what made them like they are. Just because you wonder about it, you're like, I want to know why someone would do this thing. Like, why did they? The other like villain, humanized to some extent example that's given a lot is in recent times is the big Marvel movies, and it's the Thanos is the villain, and it was always said that the reviews were often like, hey, this is actually well done, in that like his reasoning for wanting to do this terrible thing, there is a reason for it. Like, he's not saying I'm just crazy and I would just want to murder everyone. He's saying we need to do this because the universe can't survive as it is, and so the fairest way to do this is just dispassionately take out half the people in the world. I don't want to do this, but here we are. Like,
I mean, it's basically the Republican platform.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that they want to kill people randomly. That's the only thing there. But so anyway, I think it helps to have it, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, you just want just the person in opposition to your goals, and that's it.
I like the point though. It's like when they keep coming back, when they're recurring villain, that's when we want the depth, right? It's like, all right, if I'm going to invest in this thing, then you're going to have to. If it's a one shot, I don't know, he's evil, whatever. It's like, all right, fine, but maybe that's the trick. It's like, if you're going to make me invest in this, then there needs to be some layers of complexity to keep this character interesting and to keep me.
By the way, and then the more and more we go along, or at least in our current time, we had a great 20-30 year period where the easy thing to do is you could just mention Nazis vaguely and like link them to that, and they're like, and again, that wasn't the reason, because it was like there's an easy backstory to like we know what Nazis are, we know why some people might have gone, so it's like, oh, I don't have to get into it. Like, he's a Nazi. Oh, okay.
He's a Nazi.
Enough said.
But now
we don't have
Nazis have been around for 40 years, and now we know there are good people on both sides. So
good people on both sides.
Donald Trump really tapped into the complexity of Nazism.
This is a very political episode.
Yeah.
All right. The themes are done, and we're on to the rankings. So the deal is, we're ranking, the whole point of all this is that we're ranking.
If you made it through the last hour, this is why you did it for this.
The first, this is a little fat on this episode. But that's okay. These are two important stories.
Yeah.
We are ranking the first 300 official Doctor Who television stories. We have ranked 196 so far.
That's insanity.
We're getting it done slowly. We will take another 6 months between the next episode, by the way. So we will now rank these. John, I will get started.
Please.
As is my
This is your want. Yes.
This is one of those where I ranked it. We like to do our rankings before the episode starts.
Yep.
And then sometimes I kind of move it up or down a little as we're talking.
Oh.
So I did move it up a little as we were talking about The Magician's Apprentice, The Witch's Familiar, because I did just really remember more about the through line of him meeting the boy and it being Davros, about the switcheroo that Davros pulls by Missy. I was like, I did really enjoy this. So I moved it up. I didn't have it low. I had it around like, I don't remember, maybe like 30 or 40, and I moved it up to 25.
Ooh.
So I moved it right behind The Runaway Bride because I really do love that. I moved it just ahead of Adventure in Time and Space, actually, which I really loved. And above Mummy on the Orient Express, Genesis of the Daleks. But I thought this is a good two-parter. This is a two-parter that, as opposed to some of them that we've seen before, the modern ones, the two-parters, they're not quite the 6th episode of the classics, but some of the two-parters sometimes are like, did this really need to be a movie length, for it? But I thought this one used it well, even though it kind of really just stayed with this one plot the whole time, but it used the time well. So I'm going to put that 25.
Okay.
And then the Daleks. I struggle with this one because all I can say about it during the recap is the praise of like, wow, can't believe this is the 2nd episode, really emerged fully formed, etc. and so forth. That said, when I think about it from the rewatchability aspect of it, was like, I don't think I'm going to rewatch this again. Like, it's not one I would recommend to other people. Be like, oh, jump in here.
Yeah, no, I would start it.
So I left it kind of in the middle of the pack. I put it 95 because we've ranked 198 of these, so it's right in the middle, right around Vampires of Venice, Ambassadors of Death, Unicorn and the Wasp. Just kind of like, good. Good, but I just doesn't rise for me into the top, except for that it is an iconic moment. But I for some reason I guess because I'm not coming to it from the rear view mirror, that doesn't mean as much to me. It's like, nice, that's the first Dalek episode, but that's more of a novelty for an existing fan as opposed to I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that's where I ranked it. All right, I don't need to explain myself to you.
Well, yes, you do. That's what this segment of the podcast is about. But I appreciate the anger. We're close to agreement here. Okay. I do have Magician's Apprentice and Witch's Familiar. By the way, I don't know why it's called that. It feels like these are working titles that they just are like, this is a hide it from, and then they're like, I don't have an idea. This is fine. I'm sure it makes sense on some level. I haven't, and probably Wikipedia explains it. But I've got it at number 21, right below Robot, right above Mummy on the Orient Express. So we're in the close to the same ballpark here. It seems similar to you. I think rewatching it, I was like, oh right, this is a really good, strong season finale or season opener.
Good script, good acting,
Yeah, I think obviously Julian Julian B, as we call him, is playing Davros. And again, I love the surprise of it. At the time, it was a great surprise. Plays it really well. Just the they're like, obviously it's a rubber mask, although it's a very impressive mask in this episode. But just someone had the idea of like, well, how do we make him look like he's not feeling well? Well, we'll just have him lean on his hand. And like that alone was just like, oh yeah, actually that works. So he's doing a ton of acting just with his voice because he obviously can't use that much facial expression. And you've got Missy coming in there, and we haven't, I know you have a challenging relationship with Clara. This is a pretty good Clara episode, and that's part of it, but it's not a key part of it. But doesn't hugely detract from it.
It is, by the way, we didn't mention it. It is beginning a theme of Clara in this episode of she's kind of
overconfident.
Overconfident and has this feeling of like she doesn't really care about her own safety and like Yeah, it's an interesting. It continues throughout the season.
Yeah, and they pulled. They
interesting.
started even last season. I think. Remember, she takes over for the Doctor, and she plays. She's in the Flatline one, right? And like, so it's nice that it picks up that that line. So
She
yeah, I
acts
think it's
very
an
invincible.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent one. The Daleks is a little bit higher for me than you. I've got it number 44, just below Curse of Fenric, just above Ghostlight. So splitting the Sylvester McCoy their final season. But I think in part for some of the reasons you mentioned that you recognize, so I appreciate your validation. Why it might be. It is a
you are seen, John.
Yeah,
you are seen.
It is a nostalgic. So I recall seeing this on PBS when I was very young, and so when I initially started watching Doctor Who on PBS, they only had like the rights to like the color episodes. So it was like Third Doctor through about midway through the Fourth Doctor, and then they just kept repeating those. And at some point, they got rights to the earlier episodes, and I remember it was a big deal when this came on, and so I remember watching it at I think my friend Sean's house or something like that, because his dad was a Doctor Who fan. That's how I got into it, and it was a big deal. It's like, oh, the first Dalek story, like this is where they all come from, and so I remember and it does have this sort of cozy feel to me of like, and it does like so many things that became sort of staples of Doctor Who are here,
Right?
And then you obviously have I love I think Ian and Barbara are such great companions, and this is William Hartnell when he's still you're still a little scared of him. He's still a little mercurial, and you're not quite sure what his deal is. So yeah, I think it's a solid episode. I agree. I wouldn't start people on it. I wouldn't be like this is where this is it. This is your in. It obviously does have a little bit of fat to it. It's actually it's interesting. It's almost two stories, right? There's the first 4 episodes of them being captured, escaping, and then and remember too, interestingly, at the time, it was just being broadcast as like 1 episode a week, and they didn't announce like now here's the story and it's going to be 7 episodes long. So when they escape, you would have been like, oh, hey, it's over. And the last episode had been 4 last story had been 4 episodes. So you'd be like, oh, hey, it's over. And they're like, oh no, we don't have the thing. It's like, oh, it's going to keep going. So there is there's a little bit of that, but anyway, yeah, it's a strong story. So yeah, number 44.
So when I put on the old AI enabled
brain box there,
supercomputer here, our model, when I plug it into our model,
yeah.
What that ends up for us is that Magician. First of all, we mentioned we're pretty close. You're ranked at 21. I ranked at 25. We sometimes are way more disparate on our rankings. One I see on here, you ranked 1 and I ranked like 100. But at any rate, because of that agreement, I think partly it gets up higher than both of us, which is it is up to our 15th all-time episode, The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, and then the Daleks kind of splits the difference a little bit. You have a 42, I have a 95. Together, it's ranked 60th between there. And why don't you go to the magazine?
Yeah, so Doctor, remember folks who were keeping up with Doctor Who magazine's recent polling. Let's see, Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. Interestingly, maybe upper middle of Peter Capaldi's era, number 14, just below Dark Water, Death in Heaven. That was the big season finale. Below Listen, a few other episodes we have seen. So popular, definitely a strong one.
Of all Capaldi episodes?
35 Capaldi episodes.
Huh.
Yeah. I almost thought it would be higher, so it's interesting that it's there.
We only have of his higher, and we haven't watched. We have several more to watch, but we only have Last Christmas higher than this.
Yeah, and
Mummy on the Orient Express is even the other one we have close.
Yeah, and Last Christmas, where is Last Christmas? Last Christmas below it, and these Doctor Who magazine ratings are just a mess. And then the Daleks is number 5 in the Hartnell years, 5 out of 29, and just below the Aztecs, just above the 10th planet. But
that's reasonable, I think.
Yeah, one of the more, I think, because of that classic archetype thing. So that's
we have the
Doctor Who readers.
We have the Crusade.
Oh yeah, the big one with Richard the Lionheart. Yeah,
we have I like Dalek Invasion Verse. So
yes, Dalek Invasion Verse number 1 in the old Hartnell.
Rankings. See,
so, yeah,
there you go.
You have tapped into the zeitgeist of Who.
Well, I will mention too, because I do just always like checking up on this. In terms of, we have another Capaldi in, we have another First Doctor in here, so we can see our rankings of the Doctors, and you currently have the Capaldi era ranked with a bullet your top Doctor by far. And so we asked this repeatedly. It's like, does that track with you? Because I know we have a few episodes left, but like there would have to be some extreme stinkers in here to drop it, and you have it way lower than.
Yeah, I think it might. I mean, actually, there's still some really good ones to come. I'm going to rank higher than probably this one. Yeah, I mean, I think it is a strong era. I think it is a strong era of storytelling. It does feel like it has sort of stronger stories across the board. I think Moffat's hitting his stride or something. But yeah, we'll see.
As we fill these in, and I'll let you guys behind the curtain. Sometimes these rankings, it's pretty tough to rank something in between 198 other things.
Yeah.
And so it can feel a little bit like random where we're deciding to put these.
Yeah.
But with that said, when I look at these averages by Doctor, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty close to what I feel like. Like I have Capaldi second, I have Matt Smith first, and then David Tennant after that. Part of that, and part of that I see as like, yeah, that's about right, because I just think by the Capaldi, I think I like David Tennant better as the Doctor, probably, but it's close. And I think they just like they're more consistent and better with the episodes at this point. It's like they were still figuring a lot of stuff out during David Tennant, and then for you, it's like I think the surprising thing for you, and we haven't done all of them yet, but like you have the third Doctor, as I recall, ranked higher than you necessarily thought you would have. Yeah, but it's the same thing. The fourth Doctor, it's close, but the fourth Doctor, it's just there's so much more there. There's some fluff there, and
there's gonna be some bad ones. Yeah,
you probably like Tom Baker better than the third Doctor, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And then I mean, the other thing I think maybe that some of the newer ones are going to skew for me and probably for anyone is they're just better effects, tighter editing. Like they're just going to be when you've got it against like sort of modern storytelling versus very clunky old storytelling, it gives them a little bit of an edge.
One that's a surprise for me is that my classic Doctor that I have ranked the highest is the second Doctor, which I do like.
People love Troughton, but there aren't that many Troughtons, which is
watching all of them. We've watched a lot. I'm buying these things I'm buying animated episodes. I'm subscribing to BritBox for years now. I mean, the BBC's squeezing all the life out of me.
That's what I'm telling you. They get the money. Yeah.
Well, look, John, those are our rankings. If you disagree, what should you do? Well, what do you do?
Panic.
Okay, panic. Or you can also go and to see whether you need to panic, go to mindprobe.show. You can see our rankings. You can see what's coming up next. You don't know when it's going to come. Might be 6 months, might be a week.
Stay
but
tuned.
Here's the deal: subscribe to the podcast, because then whenever the next episode comes up, it comes up in your feed. Like people are going to be surprised this came up in their feed when it comes up, which I believe will be probably the beginning of either late September or the beginning of October. I have to see when I can work on the episode. But you can go there. So we'd love it if you did that.
Yeah, we'd love it. We would adore it.
What are we looking for in the next episode?
All right, so we're going on, obviously, in the Peter Capaldi years. I always say that, and it'd be weird if we were like, so we're just gonna skip the next 6 episodes. Actually, in this case, in the watch order, if you've been religiously following the watch order on the website, I did in fact skip these 2 episodes.
Yes.
That is completely inadvertent and not meant to be editorial comment. So please, spare me your Twitter vitriol. Also, I don't go on Twitter, so I do what I want. Yes, this is the next Peter Capaldi, Clara. Sorry, another 2-parter, two-parter. Under the Lake and Before the Flood. So a water theme, underwater theme. So we've paired this with a second Doctor, Ben, Polly, and Jamie's story. The first really full story with all 3 of them together after Jamie's introduction. And they they stumble upon ancient Atlantis in the somewhat notorious Underwater Menace. It's actually, I should say it's called The Underwater Menace, not the somewhat notorious Underwater Menace, which would be a great title. So they just said that. Yeah.
And my promise to you, John, as we end this episode, which again, a little bit of a we're getting back into the treadmill. We're getting back onto things. I'm gonna have that watch order updated on the website by the time these things are posted.
Whoa. So that was just a pointless thing for me to say.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Just edit that out.
I think I'm gonna crack it. I gotta whip this spreadsheet into shape.
All right.
But,
I gotta see if I actually gave you the correct updated spreadsheet. But yeah.
Well, how does it feel? Feel good to be back?
It's good. It's good. I've got the juices are flowing. I feel like I worked out again. Yeah.
Please keep those juices out of this podcast. Mindprobe.show.